Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another goal making video. This video is going to be a part 2 of my TSM guide series. Today we're going to be discussing how to actually form groups, as well as how to use auctioning operations and how to actually post things on the auction house. So if you have not seen the first video that I have created, it is about Bank UI, which is just about using the Bank UI with warehousing, restocking, mailing, all about that, using your guild bank as well as your personal bank. So feel free to check that out if that is something you're interested in, and I hope you enjoy the video. Alright guys, so the first thing you are going to want to do is just make sure you have TSM installed. If you do not, make sure you go to tradeskillmaster.com. You will have to download the add-on to your WoW, as well as actually downloading the desktop add-on. All you have to do is make an account, install it to your computer, let it run, and there you go. You'll have to connect your realm to it, but TSM walks you through that, and basically that is the only requirement for this guide. So, like I said before, today we're going to be talking about actually how to form groups and how to choose what you want your operations to be and exactly how to put the items onto the auction house. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open TSM, which is just /TSM. And when you're here, everything's probably going to be blank if this is your first time opening, and if you click on groups, everything will be blank. Now, I am using basically a blank profile for this, so normally I would see things. However, this is a completely blank profile. There are no operations besides default, and so we're just going to get started. So the first thing with groups is that there are two ways to add items. Now, to make a group, basically all you do is click this plus button, and then a new group forms. Let's say we're going to call this tailoring. So we just type it in, and there you go. So now we officially have one group that is called tailoring. Now, if we want to actually add items into this group, this column right here showcases everything currently in my bags. So it actually says right here, it is the ungrouped items in your bags, and then I can just scroll through and select what I want. So since this is a tailoring group, let's say we're going to add a bolt of silk, we're going to add lightless silk, and we can also add shrouded cloth. Once we have these selected, there will be a check mark, and all you have to do is hit add 3 items. Those items will move to the grouped items list, and that's officially 3 items inside of your tailoring group. Now, let's say you have an item that you want to add, however, it is not in your bags. Let's say, for example, in tailoring, let's say we want to add a shrouded cloth bag. Currently, I do not have the option to add this because it is not in my actual inventory, so I have 2 options. I can either just craft one and then put it into my bags, or buy it off the auction house, and then I will be able to add it. If not, then I can click on base group at the top, and basically this is a whole list of everything that is ungrouped in the game. So then I can search for shrouded cloth bag, and there we go, it's right here. So then I can click on it, and then you have to select the group you want to add. So I'm going to add it to tailoring, and then you just hit move one item. Then if we go back to that group, you will see it right there. So this is a really nice way to add items without actually physically having them in your bags all at once. So let's say you want to add all the bags inside of the game. Then you can go here, type in bag, and then there we go. There is a ton here. And basically you can just go through these and select the exact ones that you want. And then you just pick on the group, and then you hit move item. So this is really nice, so you don't have to fill up your bags with everything. Or let's say you don't have some of the stuff crafted, then it's just a really nice way to add things without going through that extra step. So let's say you do want to make a really big group, and so tailoring is a pretty broad subject. Like, tailoring can have bags, you can have materials, you can have pieces of armor, and all these different things, and so just having a group called tailoring can get very confusing. So what we can do is add subgroups. The way to do that is you want to make sure you have the group, the main group selected, in this case tailoring, and if we click the plus button, then as you can see, a drop down arrow shows up by the name of the group, and there is a new group here. So let's call this materials. As you can see, the group is created, and you can tell it's a subgroup because it's changed colors. It is no longer yellow, it is actually kind of a grayish color, and if you click this arrow by tailoring, it disappears. That is because it is a subgroup. Now, as you can see, if we click on tailoring, you can see our 4 items that we have inside the grouped. However, if we click on materials, there is none there, because everything is listed in that main group instead of the subgroup that we just created. Now, to change that is that we can actually click on here, and then we can start removing items. So let's say we made this materials, so we want to remove every material. We just do that and hit remove. After that, we can go back to materials, and we can select those things, or you can search it inside of base group, and then you can add it back to this group. As you can see, we now have it listed under materials, and if we click tailoring, it still is listed under the whole groups. Now, you can take this basically as far as you want. Let's say you want to separate materials by bolts and normal cloth. Then you can create a subgroup under materials, and then you can call this bolts. So then you can remove the bolt of cloth from the original just materials tab, and then you can go under bolts and add it right there. So now we have a tiered system basically. So if we close everything, as you can see, our standard group of tailoring has the bolt, the 2 different pieces of cloth, and the bag in it. If we drop down, as you can see, we have the materials group, which strictly just has the 3 materials, and it doesn't have the bag in it. And then, once again, if we want to go even more into that, then we have the bolts section, which is strictly just the bolts of cloth. Now, you can take this as far as you want. So let's say if we go back to my Shadowlands group that I personally use, as you can see, I have one group that is basically called professions, and if you click on it, then it is broken down by each profession. So let's say we want to go into cooking, we can open that once again, and then we have our 4 different types. So we have our feast, our large meals, our light meals, and our soul food. So this is really nice for organization. And if you want to look for tailoring, for example, as you can see, we have bags, which has even another drop down, which shows you it has the cloth bags, etc. And then you have even more drop downs and everything between that. So this is a really nice way to make sure you are keeping everything organized, and it helps kind of declutter all the groups and stuff like that. So basically, this is the main breakdown how to add groups. However, I'm going to be going over one more thing until we get over to the operations. Alright, so the last thing we're going to be covering is the variations button that you have with your groups. So as you can see, currently in my inventory, I have 5 of the same capes. They're all eye level 111, and they're all Shrouded Cloth capes. However, as you can see, the different stat levels change. For example, this one has haste and mastery, this one has haste and versatility, this one has critical strike and haste, etc. Now, the reason this happens is because if we actually look at the craft, as you can see, if you hover over it, it adds a random stat 1 and a random stat 2, which means even though these capes are actually technically the same, they register differently because of their stats inside of TSM. So let's see, we want to add it to the tailoring group. As you can see, currently it shows us 5 different capes. Now, the issue with this is, let's say we only add this one right here. That means that the versatility and mastery cape is now added to our group. So let's say we decide to try to post this on the auction house. It will only post the capes with versatility and mastery and will ignore everything else. Now, this gets really annoying, especially with Transmog, because Transmog pieces have different item levels, as well as they have different pieces that say like of the quick blade or of mastery or something like that, which is just randomized stats, even though they're technically the same appearance and technically the same item. So instead of adding 15 of the same cape, there is a button in TSM that can help you solve that. So if we click ignore variations, as you can see, there is now only 1 cape inside of my inventory, and it is listed as that random stat 1 and that random stat 2 cape, which means if I add this now into my group, then it will basically cover all the different Shrouded Cloth capes and will ignore the stats. Now, please keep in mind that let's say you already have a group and you want to do this, it will not edit anything inside the group that is already grouped. For example, we click that button and that cape that we added earlier is still there. That means, let's say you have a transmog group that you added everything into and you now want to apply this variations command. Then you will either have to recreate the group or you will have to delete everything out of the group and re-add it. So what we're going to do is remove this item and then we can go down to the shrouded cloth cape and add it. So now, as you can see, it is now that random stat 1 and that random stat 2 cape, and no matter what those stats are, it will always pick up this cape as an item and will make sure to post all 5. So this is really important for, let's say, these shrouded cloth pieces. If you are trying to post those items on the auction house, since they have random stats, and this is a very important button for transmog, because depending on your level of when you're farming transmog, those pieces might have different item levels, which TSM will try to recognize and post accordingly, and you do not want that. You always want to undercut no matter the item level, so this is something that is very, very important for transmog, and it can also be useful for crafting. So now, since we have the basic groups kind of established, we're going to move on to operations. Alright, so the next part of this video is going to be strictly about auctioning operations, and to get started, there is a few different terminology that you should know for using TSM. These few terminology is strictly for posting and pricing with operations on the auction house, so I'm just going to go through them real quickly and then discuss the use of each of them. So the first term we have is DB min buyout, and this refers to the minimum price of an item on the auction house. That means, let's say you have 3 Mechano Hogs, which is a mount on the auction house. One is for 10k, one is for 5k, and one is for 2k. Then the min buyout of the Mechano Hog would be 2k, because that is the cheapest one on the auction house. So the second term we have is DB market, and this represents the average market value of this item. Now, TSM uses an algorithm to figure this out. However, to simply put it, it is the average cost of the item over the last 14 days or 2 weeks. So this is an average of the market price of your item. Now, the third term we have is DB historical, and this is very similar to DB market in the sense that it is an average. However, historical means that is an average over the last 90 days, which is basically 3 months, compared to only 2 weeks with DB market. Now, the difference between historical and market in the terms of usage, basically an item that has a longer lasting and more stable market, you would want to use historical. For example, volatiles, they have been out for years now, ever since Cataclysm, and because of that, their price has been very stable over the past few months, and because of that, you would probably want to use DB historical over DB market. However, let's say Shadowlands materials, since Shadowlands has only been out for just a few months, and because of the prices have changed so drastically, you would want to use something more short-term like the DB market instead of DB historical in the sense of Shadowlands cooking and Shadowlands food. So that's kind of the difference of those two and how you can determine which one to use. The fourth term we have is DB region market average. And now this is the average DB market price of an item across your region. So this means that it is an average of each realm's average price in your whole region. So instead of just taking an average of your server, it is an average of every single realm on, let's say, the NA realms or the EU realms. So this is an overall average of all the realms instead of just yours. The fifth term we have is crafting. Now, crafting basically just states the crafting cost of an item. So once again, you can only use this if the item is craftable. However, this is basically just calculating the material cost of an item to make, and that is labeled as crafting. Then we have vendor buy as well as vendor sell, which is just referring to the purchase price from a vendor of an item, as well as the vendor sale value of that item if you were to sell it off to a vendor. And lastly, we have average buy and average sell, which is your average buy price as well as sell price of an item strictly for you. So let's say you always sell an item for about 10 gold. Yes, sometimes it fluctuates to 12, sometimes it fluctuates to 9. However, you always sell it around that 10 gold range. Then your average sell price is going to be 10 gold. It doesn't matter if the DB market price is 50 gold. If you normally sell it around that range, that is your personal average, and that is what these are calculating. So with those terms being said, we are going to be using a few of those in this next part of the video. So be sure to pause the video and kind of learn those terms, or maybe take a screenshot or write them down, so you can use it as a little cheat sheet for the rest of this video. So what I have done is created 3 groups using the methods that we used previously to make basically the 3 types of operations that we're going to be using. Now we have crafted items, so I just have a few shaded stones in here as well as a craftable mount. Then we have materials, which is basically just farmed materials. And then we have transmog, which is a farmed transmog, which I have 3 of just for examples. So we have basically 3 in each category, and we're going to be using these to base our operations off of. So the first thing you're going to be wanting to do when you open up an auctioning operation is you want to click this button and create a new one. The first thing we're going to be talking about is crafted items. So let's say you want to label this crafted, then that's what we're going to do. Now the first window you are going to run into is the details page, and there's not a lot of things that you should be changing on this page. Basically, you have the options to ignore auctions. So let's say there is an auction that is expiring in 30 minutes. Let's say you want TSM to ignore those items and post it after that, because once those expire, then you will be first on the page. Then you can select that. So let's say you can select long, medium, or short. Then you can also blacklist players. So let's say you have an alt account, or you have a friend or something that you guys are both doing gold making and you do not want to undercut that person. You can blacklist that name in there to make sure that you are not going to post below them. Then we also have ignore this operation on factions. So let's say you have this operation, however you do not want to use it on a certain realm. You can select it right there. And then lastly, you can also do that with characters. So let's say you have a certain character that you want to make sure that it's not using this operation. You can also ignore it to that. Lastly, we have group management, which is basically you can attach this operation to any of your groups. Since this is the crafted one, we are going to click this and we are going to add it to our crafted group and select group. As you can see, it will now be listed there, and so now it is attached to our specific group. The next tab you have is posting, which is basically the main tab of this operation. As you can see, it first starts off with basically just your options. So the first category you have is posting options. This is just your generic options that you have whenever posting an item. So you can change for how long it is posted, either 12, 24, or 48 hours. Then you can change how much is being posted. You can also add a limit to how many you want to keep inside your bags, as well as a max expires. So let's say this expires after 5 tries, you no longer want to post it, and you can tell TSM that. The next section we have is posting prices. So you can set a percentage to place bids on certain items. You can also set an undercut amount for specific items, and then you have your minimum, maximum, and your normal price of items. Now this is just the default, that's what it's going to show, but we're going to get into this in a second. The last tab you have is just canceling, so you can choose if you want to cancel these auctions or not. You can also choose if you want to cancel these in order to repost them for a higher price or not, and then you can also see what your reposting threshold is for the amount of gold it's going to take. So these are just the generic options you have for auctioning operations, and now we're going to get started into actually determining what you should put in each category. So with posting, we are going to be talking about the crafted section first. Now with crafted items, it depends if you are doing Shadowlands items or you are doing more old world items. But in this case, we do have Shadowlands items. The mount is not. However, these two are Shadowlands items. And because of that, there is a lot of competition. So we're going to be posting our auctions for only 12 hours. Now, the reason I do this is because I know I'm going to cancel scan these before 12 hours and then I'm going to have to repost them. And because of this, there is no reason for me to be spending the deposit cost of 24 or 48 hours when I know they're not even going to last 12 hours. So that is why I always pick the cheapest one. Secondly, these are crafted items, and because of that, I'm going to set a post cap for maybe 15. So if I have more than 15 of these waystones in my inventory, then I cannot post over that amount. Now, I can also choose to keep a certain amount in my bags. Let's say I want to use these for myself for Mythic Plus or something like that, then I'm going to set it for 2. So as long as I can keep 2 in my bags at once, then that's fine. I can sell everything else up to that 15 mark. Lastly, I can choose if I want to post this after a certain amount of expires and stop posting it. However, I don't really care about how many times it expires because I'm going to be cancel scanning a lot. So I'm just not going to worry about it, and I'm going to set this to 0 to make sure it's turned off. Now we get into the fun part about operations, and specifically auctioning operations, about determining the price. Now, I am never going to place bids on my items, at least through TSM. I do not think it's worth it, and nowadays you can really only put bids on high value mounts as well as pets/BOEs, so for the most part you can always have this set to 100% to make sure you don't place bids. With the new auction house, you can't even post them on materials or anything like that, so you're going to set that just to 100 and leave it alone. Now the next part is about undercutting a mount, and you can also keep this at 0 copper. With the old auction house, you used to have to undercut by 1 copper every time you posted to make sure you were at the top of the list. However, it doesn't matter if somebody's posted at 5 gold and you post 5 gold after them, you will always be the first one since you posted the most recently. So you do not have to undercut anymore, and because of this, we're going to keep this at 0 to make sure we do not do that. Lastly, we have our minimum, our maximum, and our normal prices. Now, these can get a little bit confusing because you can make them as complicated or as not complicated as you want. Now, since these are crafted items, we are going to be using the crafting string, which we talked about earlier. Now, crafting means just the price it takes to make an item. For example, if we hover over the shaded sharpening stone, TSM says that the crafting cost is about 8 gold for this item. So if we were to set our minimum price to 100% crafting, that means this item would have to be selling for at least 8 gold, 25 silver, and 26 copper to make sure that it is posted on the auction house. That basically means that it will post exactly at that crafting cost, and if anything is cheaper than that, then it will not post at all. Now, generally, for these crafting items, you never want to have a percentage below 100, because that means, let's say we post this at 50% crafting as our minimum price. That means if this is posted for 4 gold on the auction house, then yes, we will still post it, even though we're technically now losing half the crafting cost and we're just losing gold. Because of this, you want to always make sure that your crafting percentages is above 100 to ensure you are making profit. Now, because of that, your minimum price should be a little bit above that 100 mark. Just like I said, if we were to post it at the minimum price of 100%, that means that if the item was posted at that 8 gold, 25 silver, and 26 copper price, we would still post it, and basically we just even out. We don't make profit, we don't not make profit, however, it is just stagnant, and there's really no point to that. Because of that, you will want to use a percentage above 100 to ensure you are at least making a little bit profit. So the percentage you want to change it to is completely up to you, and it completely depends on what you want your margins to be. Generally, for crafting, I set my minimum to about 115%. That means I am basically making at least a 15% profit on my items if they are posted at that minimum price. If we were using this sharpening stone, for example, if we were to post it at 115% with that 8 gold crafting cost, we would be making about 1.2 gold profit. So that is just because that is 15% of 8. However, let's say that crafting cost is 8,000. That means we'd be making a 1,200 gold profit posting it at that 115%. So this is strictly up to you. You can put it to 105, you can put it to 110, you can even put it to 150 if you really want to. It just strictly depends on you. Now, you do have the option, so whenever it is below minimum, let's say it is posted at that 100% crafting mark, which would be below our 115 set, we can either choose to not post the item, we can post it at the minimum price, we can post it at the max, post it at the normal, or we can just ignore all the auctions that are below it. So in this case, I'm going to choose to not post the items because if something's below, it's very hard that yours is going to get bought up. So you can just save your items until it is actually profitable. So in this case, I'm just going to make it so that we're not going to post them. So we're going to skip maximum price for now and move on to normal price. Now what normal price means is, let's say there are no shaded sharpening stones on the auction house, this is the price that you would want to post it at. So if they were completely out, you would be the only one posting. That is what's considered your normal price. This is only useful for when the auction house is empty. However, you still want to make sure you put a decent crafting amount for that. Once again, this is strictly personal preference. However, I'm going to set it to about 200% crafting. This means with the crafting cost being 8 gold, if there were no shaded sharpening stones on the auction house, I am telling TSM to post it at 16 gold. That is exactly 2 times the crafting cost, and that is what I'm fine with selling. So let's say you want to set it to 300%, so you would want to set it to 24 gold. You can set it to that 300, or let's say you're fine with selling it at 12 gold. Then you can set it to 150 crafting. It is strictly, once again, up to your personal preference. However, I'm going to recommend having it either double or a little over double or a little less than double of your crafting cost. Lastly, we have the maximum price, which is pretty self-explanatory. It is just the maximum price this item can ever be posted. Now this is useful for, let's say this market was empty and somebody had a sharpening stone posted at 500,000 gold. Clearly no one's going to buy that if the average market value is like 30 gold. No one's going to spend $500,000 on it. And because of that, you want your maximum price set at a reasonable number. So you're not trying to match that price at $500,000. So because of this, once again, you can completely pick what you want to do. However, I'm going to set it at 400% crafting. That means if the shaded sharpening stones, let's say, are posted at 500k each, my maximum price being at 400% would mean that I would be posting this at 32 gold. That is because 400% is basically just 4 times the 100% crafting cost. So you take that 4 times that 8, and so I'd be posting it at 32 gold, which is above the normal price that would be okay with posting. However, it is the maximum that would be okay with posting. So technically, you could set this to a 500, you could set it to 300, anything that you are okay with your max profit being, and basically that. This price is just a safeguard for anybody posting ridiculous prices on the auction house to make sure you are not matching those ridiculous prices and lowering your chance of sales. Now, once again, TSM gives you options, which you can either not post the items if it's above maximum, you can either post it at minimum, post it at maximum, or post it at normal price. Normally, to ensure you get the most gold, I always have it set to maximum. However, let's say you want to make it look better, you can have it set to normal price, or you can just not set it to post at all. However, I normally set it to post at maximum to ensure I'm making the most profit when I can. So this is how I set up all of my crafting professions and my operations to do so. However, you can change this up depending on your realm. Now, there are actually different ways to go about this. You can also use static gold prices to create this. So let's say we had a group that was strictly only for sharpening stones, then we can set static prices. For example, let's say we never want to sell this for less than 10 gold. We can set the minimum to 10 gold, just like that. Let's say we normally want to sell it for 35 gold, then we can set it to 35 gold, just like that. And let's say we never want to post it over 50 gold, then you can set it for 50 gold, just like that. So if you have certain items that are very specific that you want to set static gold marks to, you can also just strictly type in gold values instead of using percentages and variables, stuff like that. This is only really useful for items, let's say big ticket items, that you are trying to sell strictly just one of, that you know the exact prices. So let's say you bought a flip for 25k, then your minimum price would probably be about 30k to make sure you are making profit. Then your normal price can be, let's say, 50k, and then your maximum can be 100k. So you can use this if you are making sure you do not want to sell items that you bought for cheaper than it is, or you can just use percentages. It's completely up to you. However, this is an option if you wanted to do just gold values. The next group we're going to be talking about is materials, and doing so, we are going to add a new auctioning operation, and we're going to call this materials. We're going to do the exact same thing by going under details and adding this to our material group, and then we can go under posting. Now, since these are materials, I'm also going to be posting it at 12 hours, since these are Shadowlands materials, which means they're going to be getting undercut a lot due to competition. Also, since these are materials, I'm going to say I'm okay with posting 500 of each. I do not need to keep any in my bags. I also do not care about expires because I will be cancel scanning, so I am going to leave that at 0 as well. Once again, we're not going to mess with percentages for bids as well as undercuts, and we're just going to strictly move to the minimum prices. Now, these materials are farmed items and they are not crafted, which means we're going to be having to use a different variable. In this case, we are using Shadowlands materials, which means the markets are very volatile, so I'm going to be using a DB market as our average for these operations. Now, let's say you were doing old worlds, or let's say this was volatiles or primals or some type of old world materials, then you can basically repeat this. However, you can use DB historical to get that more stable average price. However, for any newer items from Shadowlands, I highly recommend DB market. Since we're going to be using DB market, we are going to analyze one of the items in the group to make sure we are making the best calls. Now, this meat is a part of the group. We have the fade fish a part of the group, so we're going to use this as our example. As you can see, under the TSM auction DB pricing, we have minimum buyout, we have market value, we also have all of the region values. Now, we are going to be basing it off of DB market just to make it more simple, so that is going to be our second column, which is the market value. That is DB market. Now, as you can see, currently the DB market, which is the 2-week average of this fish, it currently sells for an average of 19 gold. However, you can see that the minimum buyout is 30 gold. That is just because right now it is above average. But let's say we only want to sell this fish for that average market value of 19 gold. We're going to set our minimum to 100% DB market. This means that we will never sell it lower than our 2-week average, which is that 19 gold. Of course, if you are fine with selling it a little bit under, then you can set this to 95%. You can set this to 95%, or maybe you always want to sell it a little above average. You can mess with that. However, anywhere between 100 is what I would normally go for. Next is your normal price, which is once again the price that it will post if the auction house is completely out of this item. And for example, we're going to put it at 250% DB market. That means with our market average being about 20 gold, I know it's 19, but we're going to use 20 gold for easy calculation. That means if this market is completely empty and you're the only one posting, then it will be posting the fish at 50 gold, because it is basically just 2.5 times the amount of your average. So we're taking that 20, multiply it by 2, getting the 40, and multiplying it by another half, so you get that 50 gold. So that would be the normal price for this example. Lastly, you have your maximum price, which is once again just the maximum price that it will ever be set for, and you can set this to, let's say, 300% DB market. That means with this fish, if it is posted for more than 60 gold, then it will set it just at 60 gold, or you can make it set at whatever you want depending on what you choose. However, that is what that's saying. The maximum price you will ever be okay with posting this fish at would be 60 gold. So that's kind of what you would need to be looking for these materials. And once again, if this is an old world material, all you have to do is change market to historical, and that is all you have to do. However, since these are Shadowlands, we're going to keep it at market. You also have the ability to be using your region sale averages. So as you can see, even though my server realm, the last 2-week average was 19 gold, the region market average for the whole NA region is 33 gold. So we could also use that as an average if we wanted to. You would just have to change your pricing to DB region market average, and then that will use your 33 gold instead of that 19 gold for this pricing. Once again, it's completely up to you. Whatever works best for your realm, you will have to do some experimenting. However, this is what I do about materials. Lastly, we're going to be going over Transmog and how I post that. So once again, we're going to be making an auctioning operation. We are going to label it as Transmog, and we are going to add it to our Transmog group. Now, since this is Transmog, which are very slow sellers, I'm going to keep this at 24 hours. Now, let's say you only want to post your Transmog every 2 days, then it is very reasonable to set this to 48 as well. However, I am playing WoW every day, so that is why I set it to 24 hours, because I have enough time to restock it. However, let's say you don't play as much, or you just don't want to worry about it until every 2 days, you can easily set it to 48. Now, with posting cap, I would always set Transmog to 1. There is no reason to post 5 Transmogs all on the auction house. It's just going to clutter the auction house and eventually bring the price down, because people will see, oh wow, there's 10 of these on the auction house, they must not be that rare, I'm not going to pay that price for it. So there's really no reason to post more than 1, which is why I'm going to keep that at posting cap 1. Now, I do not care about if I keep them in my bags or not, so I'm going to keep that at a 0. Then, with the posting after this many expires, let's say if you don't want to post it after 30 expires, which based on our duration would be basically 30 days or 1 month, then you want to stop posting it, and TSM will tell you that it is at max expires, and then you can just vendor the item. This is strictly up to you, and it depends on the transmog you're selling. So let's say all your transmog's worth about 500 gold, and it's not selling after 30 days. I believe that is perfectly reasonable to declutter and to vendor those items. However, let's say it's a huge ticket item and it sells for 1 million or 500k or something really big. It might take more than a month to sell that, so maybe you should not set your max expires for those. Once again, it's completely up to you, but for examples, we're just going to post it like this. Then we are going to keep that bid percentage at 100%, and we are not going to undercut. Now, for Transmog, once again, you can choose the variable you want to use. However, for this example, I am going to be using DB Market. Once again, however, you can choose to either use DB Historical or anything like that. Now, different realms are going to have very different Transmog prices because of lower pop realms will normally have more expensive Transmog prices than higher pop realms with a lot more players. Because of this, let's say the glorious leg plates sell for 100k on my server. However, for a very popular server like Thrall or something like that for NA realms, it might only sell for 35k or even less than that. Because of this, I would stay away from region market averages because region prices are all over the place depending on server pop. I would not really recommend using these to calculate transmog. However, they are perfectly fine for materials or anything like that, but for transmog there can be some huge differences, so I would not recommend. Now, these scholarly robes are one of the transmog pieces inside of this group, so we're going to be using this as an example. And as you can see, DB market value is about 289 gold. Now, currently the minimum buyout is about 300, as well as the market average being about 460. Now, since this is transmog, there's really no investment into it. These are strictly just pieces that are farmed from whatever, either dungeons or open world farms, and because of that, I'm not very worried about what I sell them for. Because of this, I am okay if they sell a little under average or sell a little bit cheaper than they normally should, because once again, they are just farmed items, and once again, they are just transmog. Because of this, I normally set my minimum value under 100%. So for example, I'm going to set this at 85% DB market. That means that if this is 85% under that market value, then I can still post it and I'll be fine with that. I'm strictly okay with this because I don't mind losing a little bit of gold as long as I can get the sale in, and since they're transmog anyways, I don't really have any gold investment into this. Now for a normal price, I'm going to set this for about 175% DB market. That's just what I like to put it to because I don't want to post my transmogs at extreme prices if they are cheap like this, because people are less likely to buy them, and I'm really just there to make sure I can sell as much transmog as I want. However, let's say this is a high ticket item, and whether or not somebody's going to be spending 1,000,000 gold, you might as well put that normal price up to 200%, because if you're the only one with that extremely rare item, then people will pay that hefty price for it. So if this is a very high value transmog that is very rare, you can set that normal price a lot higher to make sure you're getting the best gold that you can. Lastly, for maximum price, I'm just going to set this to 300% DB market because there's no reason for me trying to post these scholarly robes at 30,000 gold. It's just not reasonable, and because of that, I'm fine if I get anywhere between 900 to 1,000 gold out of it at max, so that's why I'm going to set that to that 300% DB market. Transmog is a side income, and because of that, I am completely fine with some sales, maybe with some faster sales rather than more expensive sales. For example, I'm completely okay if I sell this robe in 2 days for 200 gold rather than waiting 3 weeks for selling it for that 300 gold mark. So I'm completely fine with losing a little bit of gold in order to get that quicker sale to move these items out of my inventory before so. Of course, once again, it is completely up to you and what you decide to do. However, this is just what I do. But yeah, guys, that is basically how you can set up operations. This is kind of my thought process of setting up those operations depending on the type of item you are doing. Of course, this would be best if you had groups that are a little bit more specific, and so you could create operations based on that more specific groups. However, once again, this is just the basics. Now to just show you guys how to use this. So if you go onto your auction house after you set up everything, then you will want to go under auctioning and you can select your groups. If you want to only make sure that you are posting your groups that you have created with operations, make sure you deselect base group. If you have it selected, then it will scan everything in your inventory and use the default operation, which is pretty bad and you do not want that. So just make sure you deselect base group and have everything selected that you want to post. After that, you just hit post scan and it will do its thing. As you can see, it is not going to post the Mechano Hog because I said I wanted to make sure there was 2 in my bags at all times, and currently there's only 1, so I'm not going to post that. It is also not going to post the meat, the shield, or the silk because the cheapest auction is below my minimum price that I have set. It is also not going to post my scholarly robes because I set the max posting cap to 1, and as you can see, I already have this posted on my alt, my actual Transmog bank tune, so it is telling me to not post it. However, I can post everything else, and it tells you the operation it's posting with, so this Transmog piece is under the Transmog tab, then you have your 2 crafted, and then you have your materials. All you have to do is hit post, and then it will take it out your inventory. It is currently now posted on the auction house. Now the next thing you can do is also hit cancel scan. It is telling me that none of my auctions have been undercut. However, let's say it had been, it will tell you, and you just click the cancel button, then you can repost them once again. So that is basically how to create groups as well as create operations depending on the different items that you have grouped. So I really hope this video helped. I apologize, this was a long video. However, I just wanted to make sure that all the information was out to you guys, because I completely understand TSM is very confusing sometimes, and it's just best to make sure that you guys have a tutorial to watch whenever you guys are feeling stuck. So please let me know in the comments down below how you appreciated this video, if there's any improvements you would like me to do, or let's say I left out something that you were really hoping to see. Feel free to leave it in the comments below. I will make sure to either recover it, or I will make sure to reply back to you with the information that I missed. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Also, check out my Twitch. I am live streaming 4 days a week, as well as make sure you join the Discord to make sure you are always up to date with anything going on with my channel, as well as making sure you're joining the awesome community that we've created. But thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good day.